There is a simple formula for figuring out how to be more frugal and to save money, and I want to share that with you today. Too many frugality tips help you save 30 cents here, 80 cents there, and realistically, that can be pretty slow to add up and make a meaningful impact on your life. What's also important is that there is no one size fits all. One frugality tip might work great for one person, but not for another, because maybe that person values that thing a lot, or it brings them a lot of joy, the thing they're supposed to cut out of their lives. Maybe, for example, you really love ordering in because it saves you time and energy cooking and cleaning. And maybe that allows you to work more in order to make more money for your family, or it allows you to spend more time with your family rather than getting stuck in the kitchen. And maybe that makes a really big impact on your life. Different people have different values and priorities, and different changes they make to their lives will have different impacts on people's mood and perceived quality of life. Also, how much you tend to spend in various categories might shift from person to person, and so using a simple tip might not impact everyone the same amount. And so that's where this formula fits in. I'll tell you the formula in a second, but conceptually the idea is that how you should behave is determined by the thing you spend the most money on for the least payoff. So the formula is how much money you spend in a category divided by the subjective impact that category has on your life. So on a scale of say 0 to 100, how much value or impact does this category of items bring to your life? That is equal to how financially wasteful something is. So something with a higher value is maybe something that you should consider eliminating or reducing from your life. Basically, the question is, what is something you spend a lot of money on in your life but doesn't bring you much value, or at least a significant amount of money on, but it doesn't make an impact? So part of this is figuring out how much value something brings to your life, which is a subjective thing and is something you need to think through a little bit. For me, clothing is a great example. It's something I've historically spent probably far too much money on. Yes, it brings me a little surge of happiness when I buy it, but in the long run, does it make a deep, meaningful impact on my quality of life or my happiness? Probably not. So that's a good example of something where maybe it's a higher number value of how much I spend on it, a low denominator of how much value it really is, and so that's a higher overall metric on this scale of something maybe I could eliminate or at least reduce in my spending. Once you get clear on the realistic impact or value an object or a category has on your life, it becomes obvious what you need to eliminate from your spending or reduce. That process almost makes it a little bit easier to reduce spending in that area. If you just go on autopilot and you're not paying attention to how what you're buying is impacting your life, it's easy to just keep spending. But if you realize, wow, I'm spending a lot of money on this, but I'm not getting that much of a payoff as far as my joy, my feeling of accomplishment or of connection or of community or my own sense of meaning, whatever that is for you, it becomes that much easier to just reduce that area, because that clarity is what helps spur behavior. It helps motivate you to make the behavioral changes that you need to make in order to be more frugal. This is a concept that you can apply to your life and try to disentangle what your priorities are and where your problem areas are. Because once you figure out your problem areas, you can focus on that. You don't have to keep track of all these many little tiny frugality tips and be constantly multitasking. You can instead just focus on my one goal for this month, say, is to reduce spending on clothing, or my one goal for this month is to do a no-buy month of clothing. And notice when I feel tempted to buy something in that category, maybe even to write it down, or at least to kind of mentally monitor what's my relationship with this category, why do I keep spending excessive money on it, and what are the things I do to help reduce my spending in that area that work for me. And so it's a very individualized concept concept that addresses where your spending lies. Now, again, it doesn't mean that the category you spend the most on is necessarily the one you need to tackle. If that category is an area that brings you a lot of meaning and enjoyment, then maybe that's not the one to tackle. But if there's another that you spend a fair amount of money on and it really doesn't have much of an impact for you, that's something you can tackle. And I also want you to think out of the box with this. Like, look at your energy bills or other automatic payments that you forget about. What are areas where you're spending a lot of money but don't really impact you day to day? For example, subscriptions to video services or other types of subscriptions to services that you no longer use. I think it's so easy to forget about those, but they might be a fair amount of money if you're not checking on them. So basically, get clear on your priorities, get clear on what your spending actually looks like, and use that to inform how you can save money. I know it's a simple concept. Maybe it's something that you've kind of thought about before, but I think doing it in this very logical, head-on way where you're maybe even putting numbers into that formula helps you clarify what you need to change and gives you a clear goal, as opposed to just thinking, oh, I should probably stop shopping. Instead, having a clear direction for what you want to tackle. So this was a short and simple one, but if you want to see a similar video on how I stay organized, my best tip for just keeping my life organized as I juggle a lot of different roles and a lot of different responsibilities, I will link that at the end of this video. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It's a great way to support the channel. So if you take a moment to do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Please just do that if you're willing. If you want to see more videos like this one on frugality, on simple living, on minimalism, then hit the subscribe button below. Thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.